I'm going to show you some best practices for exporting a song or a beat in Studio One. I'm using Studio One 7, obviously this applies to any Studio One and probably generally applies to most DAWs as well, but this is a tactical Studio One tip. Welcome to the producer place, my name is Nick Rollo. I'm a producer with millions and millions of streams to my name, and I've worked with many artists. I don't say this to brag, just to say that I've done some things, so hopefully it's credible. Producer Place is designed to help producers and mixing engineers learn, particularly beginners. I hope you find it helpful. There are some freebies linked below. There's a free vocal mixing cheat sheet. There are some free Studio One presets. Go check those out. Let's get into the video. I don't want to waste your time. So I have this beat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a limiter. I'm just going to use the Studio One limiter to give an example for you. I'm also going to pull up a level meter, and I'm putting these on the main mix bus, and you might have other processing on, maybe you've already limited, but I'm just going to show you how I kind of would quickly get a volume going, particularly for demos. I'm going to set this ceiling to -0.1, so that means that the threshold can't go past that. I don't really use this level meter, but I'm going to use the EBU R128, and I'm looking at the LUFS, which is here. So I'm just going to play it. Because this beat is completely unmixed and it's kind of chaotic, it's already going pretty loud, so just putting the limiter on has kind of put it where it needs to go. It's hitting about -10. That's pretty good. -8 would be a little bit nicer loudness level, but somewhere between -12 and -8 is generally a pretty good spot, especially just for a demo. It's going to be loud, it's going to be competitive. You can make it louder if you bring the threshold down or push the gain up. Let's just try push the gain up and see how that feels. The reduction right now is about -4 dB. I'm going to leave it there. Note that the more you push the limiter, particularly a limiter like the Studio One limiter, the more crunchy it's going to get. I personally use Pro L by FabFilter. I find it's a little bit more transparent and it doesn't crunch up as much. Just something to keep in mind. The louder you push it, the more distorted it's potentially going to get, especially if it's not mixed well. Low end is just going to go crazy with it. But this video is just assuming that you've already done the mixing and that it's kind of where you want it to be. Just dial in those levels until you're getting a happy luff. -10 is a good ballpark. As I said, -8, -10, -12 in that space is probably good. I generally try to shoot when I'm mixing and mastering for about -8, -6 to 8 if I'm feeling real like loud, but generally in that space. The next thing that I would do is I would navigate over to this little global track visibility, and I will click marker, and then I'm going to get a start marker. When I'm exporting a song, I generally put it pretty close, within 1 or 2 quarter notes, so that when you press start, there's a little gap. Maybe 1 quarter note is better, sometimes 2. Let's just put it right up at it. Basically, this is just going to avoid any weird clipping that happens. Sometimes when an audio file just starts, there's a little, so having a tiny bit of buffer right at the start is just going to make sure that you're clear for that. If you're trying to send this to another producer or to an artist, I'd probably recommend doing a whole quarter. Oh, sorry, this isn't a quarter. This is what, like a 16th. I would probably do a full bar. So if I want to send it to you, who's going to sing on it, I would give 1 bar in advance, or you could just have it at the starting point. It doesn't really matter if it's purely for recording. If this is for release or anything else, just tiny little gap. And then you're going to go find the end one, put it here, and you're just going to play the end of the track and just see where the audio cuts off. Just watching that bar. So it lingers a little bit too far, so what I'm going to do is click on the master bus, and I'm going to click right and I just tap the fader so that I get an automation lane, click read, And then I'm just going to fade it so it kind of ends out about a bar after. That's a bit abrupt. Let's go a bar and a half. Feels good. This is a case by case thing. Not every song is the same, so whatever feels best in that regard. But I would definitely recommend making sure that you control how it ends. Maybe it's just about putting the end marker a little bit further away, but just make sure it doesn't have like audio hitting as it ends, because then you'll get a weird cutoff. Not particularly pleasant. Either fade it out or put it far enough away. And then yeah, just make sure that that's in line with where it all goes to zero. Just a bit of a tidiness, you know? Next thing we're going to do is go Command E on a Mac, or if you go to Song and then Export Mixdown, you want to make sure that your song start and end marker is selected. Then you want to pick the right place for your song to go. Let's just leave it there for now. Wave file, I'd probably do, or you could do an MP3. If you do a wave file, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. I operate in 48 kilohertz, and 24-bit is the export that I do. If you're doing 44, you could probably get away with 4416, but I would recommend 4824. Just sounds better. It's a slightly bigger file, but space is pretty cheap, so do what you gotta do. MP3, 44 kilohertz, and then you want a constant bitrate of 320 kilobytes per second. MP3 sounds pretty bad, so if you're gonna do MP3, 320 kilohertz, 320 kilobits per second is the way to do it. If you're using Studio One 7, you can do both at the same time. But wave file is good, especially for release. If you're doing release, definitely do 24-bit 48 kilohertz if the session is in 48. I don't touch any of these things. I don't use real-time processing. I don't write tempo to audio files anymore because I found that can be kind of weird if you're sending it to people. Just tell them the tempo. I don't import it to track. I definitely don't bypass the master effects. Yeah, I keep it pretty simple. If you're exporting it, just make sure that you title it properly. If you're sending it to somebody, what I would recommend doing is say something like artist name, song name, BPM key, something like that. Or you could do underscores if you want to keep it all in one name. And then you just click OK and it goes. Pretty easy. And yeah, that'll sound great. If you found this helpful, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And as I said, check out those freebies, and I'll catch you next video. Bye.